More worries for the federal government over the fear of forfeiture of foreign assets on the hills. The deal between the Nigerian government and a foreign firm, P&ID, went bad. The vice president has met with top officials today at the presidential villa. And the Supreme Court today dismissed a suit seeking the disqualification of President Muhammadu Buhari from the last presidential election for lying on oath. Hello everyone, welcome to the program. This is Politics Today live on Channel Television. I'm Sean Kimbale. Let's kick off tonight with the news about the Supreme Court judgment which dismissed the suit seeking the disqualification of President Muhammadu Buhari from the 2019 presidential election for allegedly lying on oath. The appellants, Mr. Kalu Labaran Ismail and Hassan El Kuriz, had approached the Supreme Court asking it to nullify the candidacy of President Buhari in the February 23rd presidential poll over allegations that he perjured himself on the matter. They claim that President Buhari lied on oath in the form CF001 he submitted to INEC for the 2019 election. The Supreme Court, in its ruling led by 5 panel, was read by Justice Mary Odili, agreed with the Court of Appeal and the Federal High Court, which had earlier ruled that the suit was statute barred. The Federal High Court had on May the 2nd declined to grant the request of the appellants on the grounds that the suit was not filed within the time allowed by law and therefore sustained the preliminary objection raised by Mr. Buhari at the hearing. And let's tell you that preparations are in top gear ahead of the November the 16th Kogi and Bayelsa state governorship election. Momentum is gained. APC, SDP, and ANRP in Kogi State have concluded their primaries, where the incumbent governor, Yahya Bello, emerged as a candidate of the APC, Natasha Akpoti for the SDP, and Arodun for the ANRP. For the Bayelsa State governorship election, here are some of the names of the PDP and APC aspirants for the race, which is expected to hold tomorrow. Check out some of the names of those whom the parties. These are for the PDP that will line up for tomorrow's primaries. All right, then let's check out some other top stories that we have for you on our political roundup.
The federal government says it plans to create jobs for the nation's youth through the commercialization of research findings. The Minister of Science and Technology, Dr. Ogbonnaya, explains that the next 4 years will see the reinvigoration of skill centers across the country for wealth creation and employment generation.
The creation of jobs will receive serious attention through the commercialization of research findings. I intend to encourage Nigerians to develop greater interest in venture capital through the participation of the private sector.
The National Conscience Party is urging the Independent National Electoral Commission to shelve the planned deregistration of political parties. The party says its position is as a result of what it describes as inconsistencies with the 2019 elections. Also, in view of the forthcoming Kogi and Bayelsa state governorship elections, the party is advising INEC to overhaul its mechanism to ensure improvement from the general elections.
The election was full of inconsistencies, use of talk to intimidate voters, etc. This is totally unacceptable and condemnable.
Ahead of the November governorship election in Kogi State, the Abundant Nigeria Renewal Party has elected Emmanuel Orogun as the candidate of the party after a primary election conducted in Lokoja, the state capital. The election, which was an affirmation of the sole candidate of the party, was attended by some stakeholders, party members, and some officials of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. An election tribunal sitting in Abuja has dismissed a petition filed by the candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Malam Kodla Satumari, challenging the emergence of Senator Aline Dume as the winner of the February 23rd Borno South senatorial election. Malam Kodla had approached the court to seek a nullification of the election on the grounds of alleged irregularities, including thuggery, intimidation of voters, results manipulation, and non-compliance with electoral laws. Elsewhere, the Election Petitions Tribunal in Osogbo has nullified the election that produced Mr. Bamidele Salam as the lawmaker representing Ede North, Ede South, Egbedore, and Ejigbo Federal Constituency. The tribunal also declared the elections that produced two other PDP lawmakers representing Obokun and Ede North state constituencies inconclusive and ordered a rerun. Delivering the judgment, Justice Ayoita, who led the three-man panel, said the petitioner, Adejare Bello, of the APC has proven his case of voting in some polling units beyond reasonable doubt.
Well, now to our discussion of tonight. The fear that Nigeria will lose a whopping almost $10 billion worth of foreign asset is causing the federal government headache. The Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, chaired a meeting today with the Finance, Budget and National Planning Minister Zainab Ahmed, the Minister of Justice Abubakar Malami, Minister of Information Lai Mohammed, and the Minister of State for Petroleum Timipre Silva at the State House. The focus of the meeting, we understand, is on the latest developments surrounding the $9.6 billion judgment bad deal suit against Nigeria by a British court was over a botched gas contract. Others in attendance at that meeting are the Minister of State for Niger Delta Affairs, Mr. Festus Keyamo, SAN, Group Managing Director of the NNPC, Mili Kiari, Acting Chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Mr. Ibrahim Magu, and the Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele. And earlier today, this is what happened on the street of Abuja, a protest. Take a look.
And P&ID should go back to the position of the arbitration tribunal.
And to overturn the $9.6 billion judgment against Nigeria in a botched gas supply and processing agreement with the Process and Industrial Developments Limited, P&ID. The protesters who made the demands at the British High Commission and the Embassy of Ireland are alleging that a judgment is excessive and politically motivated. The deal was in 2010, and earlier today, a former Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice at about that time spoke on the matter on our breakfast program. This is what Mr. Andwaka had to say on the matter.
Paper. I saw from yesterday paper in The Nation on the front page. I did not see anywhere Infrastructure Regulatory Commission is mentioned. So who is going to regret the concession? Because they are the only people statutorily vested in Nigeria with the power to regulate and monitor concessions. So, but I did not see where any one of them is mentioned. And then how would you, if a contract, the law stipulates that the contract must be approved of such nature must be approved by Federal Executive Council. It does not say the president can even give an anticipatory approval. Section 2 to 3 of the Infrastructure Regulatory Commission stipulates that such concession must be approved by the Federal Executive Council. It's a fundamental issue that can be raised anywhere that touches on fraud. If it is not brought to Federal Executive Council, why was it not brought? These are the main questions to act to impeach on the foundation of the contract. And if the foundation of the contract is founded on fraud, it cannot stand.
So the analysis of Mr. Ndwaka is pointing at the fact that there may be fraud. Perhaps the reason why the federal government is asking the EFCC to weigh in on the matter, would Nigeria lose this asset worth almost 10 billion naira? What does this mean to investment in the country, talking about foreign direct investment in Nigeria, the trust in the economic climate of the country? Let's get talking, everyone. This is a very important and crucial matter when the VP was meeting with top officials of government. Our discussion tonight will begin with our panel in our Abuja studio, former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank, an economist, Dr. Obadiah Melafia, and also a lawyer, Mr. Aliyu Abdullahi. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming on tonight. Let me come to you quickly, Dr. Melafia. With what has happened today, a lot of inferences are being drawn. Some are alleging that the federal government are not taking this case seriously, and that was why we lost out in this case in the last few months. Some are also alleging that this might be fraud. Some are alleging that the implications of these over the issues of gas contract is in fact very, very deep. It's deeper than what we can see on the surface. What would be your reaction, Dr. Melafia?
Well, like everybody else, I was very, very shocked at this extraordinary award against our country in the name of a very shadowy company, P&ID, Process and Engineering Development Limited, owned by Irishmen, 2 Irishmen, one of whom is dead, and registered in the Virgin Islands, the British Virgin Islands. So it is an offshore company. I tried to do a lot of search on this company. I have never seen their balance of payment, official balance sheet. I've not seen any information statements about them. Their website has nothing on it except the issue going on with the case against the government of Nigeria. It all looks very, very dubious. But again, we should not take it lightly because it's a very, very serious matter. Justice Christopher Butcher is one of the most distinguished judges sitting on the Admiralty and Commercial Court of England and Wales. He has issued this judgment against us. I think it's a flawed judgment because no contract has been performed. And you see, this company made sure that they understood, apparently they've been working in this country for 30 years. They understood our weaknesses. Umaru Yar'Adua had been very sick as president up to the time he died, 2007, 2010. They made sure they came in at those difficult times when the president was not even in the country. And his petroleum minister was a very sick man himself, Rilwan Lukman. And they claimed he signed on behalf of the government. I don't know what the procedures are, but I doubt it if one minister can sign on behalf of the president of Nigeria and on behalf of the whole Federal Executive Council. But then this is Nigeria. Anything can happen because Rilwan Lukman himself, peace be upon his bless his soul, he's late. He was very disrespectful of the acting president. You recall there was a time he asked him to stay back because of petrol shortages. He refused and went on holiday in Vienna. He was very, very arrogant. And of course, they never got on with Goodluck Jonathan as acting president. So nothing is impossible in these circumstances. Maybe somebody did a 419 contract with these people, signed it on behalf of the government. But you see, it's very dangerous, because a government agent can take in a whole government into something they don't even know. And so we need to have more facts about this case, and we have to act with wisdom and astuteness as a country. Otherwise, we have another Bakassi Peninsula in our hands. And the same mismanagement happened. We handled Bakassi very, very badly. The Cameroonians made us look like children. Our lawyers were very, very greedy. Justice Olawale Elias, former president of the World Court, advised us not to take up the case with Cameroon. Our lawyers just saw dollars. They needed the dollars. They deceived the military government. We took the case. We lost. And as far as I'm concerned, what we lost in Bakassi in net present value terms, if you put it up to the next 100 years, is over $100 billion. And that is a staggering loss, apart from losing a strategic corner of our naval security. So this is another similar case, and I hope that we would act with responsibility. This is not the time for a blame game. The current administration need to understand that under international law, the state continues, administrations may change, and an administration must carry the liabilities as well as assets of the preceding administration.
Okay.
So we cannot run away from it.
All
you
right.
don't ignore problems and they automatically get away. You have to confront them, and confront them with wisdom and sagacity.
Okay, Dr. Melafia, thank you for your intervention. This has economic undertone or perspective to it. It also has a very huge legal aspect to it. We will look at some of the legal aspect to it with Mr. Aliyu Abdullah, because they say there are allegations also on the approach of this government in the early part of the year on when this case was going on. But we'll take a break and allow Mr. Abdullah to think about his response on that, and we'll talk more on the matter on the program tonight. Don't go anywhere, everyone. We'll be right back.
When you conceived, sign and execute a contract for the supply of gas products without involving IOCs, NPDC, and NNPC as a party to that agreement, you know very well that there are a lot of questions to answer arising from the execution of that agreement.
So let's get back to the conversation. So a lot of people are wondering, how did we allow the situation to degenerate? And Nigeria is at the brink of losing almost a huge chunk of its foreign reserve, about $10 billion on the matter. So let's get back to the conversation. Mr. Aliyu Abdullah is a lawyer and a member of the APC. Dr. Obadiah Melafia is a former deputy governor of the CBN and economist. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming on tonight. Let me come to you, Mr. Abdullah. The case which the P&ID says that they spent about $40 million when the deal was brokered on part of the contract. There are allegations that earlier, before the judgment was made, that the representation of Nigeria in that matter were not taken seriously, or did not take the matter seriously. The big question is that how did the federal government or the Office of the Attorney General or the judicial arm of the executive took this matter and allowed it to degenerate to the point of us losing the case?
Well, thank you, Sheun. Well, I think first and foremost, I won't want to hold brief for the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation. When and where how do they handle this thing so far? But actually, from my research on the whole issue, you have to trace it back to where it all began, when the contract was awarded, and also the issues surrounding the award of that contract, if indeed it was actually really awarded. So I will be more interested to talk about that. I think the entire thing, it's really shrouded in there are clear indices of signs of actual fraud around the entire contract, because this is a contract that was not awarded by the Federal Executive Council. And we know, in a concession contract, of this nature, the ICRC will actually take this issue before the Federal Executive Council, and then the Federal Executive Council will give its own approval. This was never done in this case. And like Dr. Melafia said, if you a cursory look at even the company, indicates something more of a shadowy nature. So yes, where I even fault the actual, and yes, although we said there shouldn't be blame, everybody, this is the time to be patriotic, but we have to identify culprits, and that is why I think the investigation is in top gear on this matter. Because why did we accept it to be part of the arbitration arrangement if indeed there was no contract or due process of the contract? The procurement laws, the ICRC's Act requirement, like the former AG, when you actually play the clip indicated, was not followed, then why did the last administration, why did it enter into arbitration clearly when this process were not followed? Let me even remind you, if evidence of fraud is established against P&ID, in fact, that company ought to be penalized even by their countries of origin, whether be it the United Kingdom or be it the, what do you call the name of the island that the company was registered? Exactly. These are shell corporations. These are SPVs that people use to, that use to engage in fraudulent activities, and in collaboration, I believe, with our countrymen who were not patriotic, who were in government at that time, and this is why I think the investigation will reveal more. But I want to assure you, I don't feel...
So apologies, let me quickly ask... Sorry, apologies, Mr. Abdullah. Let me quickly ask you this question. In a lawsuit of this international magnitude, what would you suggest the approach of the federal government should be? An out-of-court settlement, or we should pursue this case to the very, very end? At least we've lost this one in the first place.
Shown there is no need for out-of-court settlement, especially in light of the information coming out. We had on your television, on one of your programs, a former Attorney General who was then in office, who didn't, as a Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Federation, who didn't know the existence of this contract, and he also knew what transpired in the Federal Executive Council. The FEC didn't know there was no record of any approval of that contract. Why should we go opt for a out-of-court settlement? I think the government should actually initiate a case against P&ID and also against their collaborators that were in government or in this country. You may be surprised, even lawyers that represented Nigeria may be part of this entire debacle. So I think we should sue, when the investigation is over, we should sue them, and we should also appeal that commercial court judgment from the United Kingdom and anywhere else, because this is not something that should be taken lightly by the country, by this government. We should not be, imagine a country, an entire sovereignty. How can one or few people just go ahead and sign our rights, with a shadowy company, a briefcase company? This shouldn't happen. We should not pay one dime, 1 cent.
Sorry, apologies.
We cannot pay on it.
Because of our time, let me allow final thoughts of Dr. Melafia on this one. Dr. Melafia, briefly, can you tell us what you imagine could be the implication economically, investment-wise, on this case when a foreign investor hears this kind of thing happening, and perhaps on the side of Nigeria, what do you imagine could be the implication economically speaking?
We have to handle it. I know it's a very provocative case. It smells of 419 fraud, no doubt about it. But we have to handle it very delicately, because the Admiralty and Commercial Court of England and Wales is a very, very powerful court. And they have issued a judgment. We have to handle it very well. The implications are, of course, very dire, because with that judgment, if we don't appeal, they can literally seize most of our assets, moving vessels like ships, oil tankers, and then financial assets like gold deposits, foreign reserves, and properties, bonds, and other things, except, of course, under the Vienna Convention, our diplomatic premises and diplomatic, properties are out of bounds for the seizure. So we have to handle it, and it has huge implications for our economy. Of course, our 2019 budget is about 8.8 trillion. And you can imagine almost half of that would go if we were to pay that 10 billion amount. And and our foreign reserves are just about $42.5 billion.
All right.
I mean, A third of those reserves are actually money for belonging to foreign investors and the rest of it. And we pay something like $10 billion every year to import refined petroleum. So you can imagine what it would mean for our reserves to take $10 billion
imagine what this could mean for the nation. And that's why the worst in this case is better imagined than happening. Thank you so much, Dr. Obadiah Melafia, for your intervention tonight. And Mr. Aliyu Abdullahi, thank you so much for coming on tonight. But that's how far we can go on the program. That's our show, everyone, for tonight. Many thanks for watching. I'm Sean Kimbale. Bye for now.